My name is Nora Bennett, and I'm 28 years old. I had just earned my Master of Business Administration from the University of Washington, a milestone carved from years of relentless work and sacrifice. That evening, I slipped into a forest green dress, its fabric catching the soft glow of the Seattle skyline, and stepped into an elegant waterfront restaurant in Belltown. The place was alive with the hum of conversation, the clink of crystal glasses, and the warm flicker of candles casting golden halos across tables draped in crisp white linens. Outside, Puget Sound shimmered under the moonlight, and the scent of sea salt mingled with the aroma of fresh rosemary and roasted garlic. This was meant to be my night, a celebration of a degree earned through sleepless nights, endless spreadsheets, and the weight of a family I carried alone. But when my parents arrived, late and unsmiling, I realized the night would unravel in ways I hadn't foreseen. The restaurant was intimate yet refined, with exposed brick walls and tall windows framing the dark waters beyond. My guests, friends, colleagues, and professors who had seen me through the grind, filled the room with laughter and pride. But my parents, Margaret and Thomas Bennett, sat like statues, their faces carved with indifference. My younger sister, Lila, trailed behind them, her eyes scanning the room as if she were the guest of honor. When a colleague raised a glass and said, "Nora, an MBA from UW is no small feat. You must be so proud." My mother's lips curled into a thin smile, and my father muttered, "It's just a degree." The air grew heavy, and I felt the familiar sting of dismissal. Then came the moment that shattered everything. My father, his face flushed with wine and resentment, slammed his fist on the table and bellowed, "Paying the bills doesn't make you family." My mother leaned in, her whisper sharp enough to cut through the din. "You're just jealous of Lila." I lifted my chin, my heart pounding but my voice steady. "Then let her pay for it," I said, my words cold and deliberate, slicing through the room like a blade. Every eye turned to me, friends wide-eyed, colleagues stunned, Lila frozen. My father's face contorted with rage. "Get out!" he roared, banishing me from my own celebration. As I walked out, the sound of my heels on the hardwood floor echoed like a final verdict. That night, I didn't just leave the restaurant. I left behind a family that had never truly seen me. Have you ever been humiliated by those meant to love you most, on a day that was supposed to be yours? If so, tell me where you're reading this from, so I know I'm not alone. The weight of silent sacrifices. For years, I had been the invisible pillar holding my family together. Since I was 23, I juggled a demanding job as a junior financial analyst in Seattle's tech hub while pursuing my MBA. It wasn't ambition that drove me. It was necessity. My family leaned on me like a crutch, and I was the only one willing to bear the weight. My parents, once middle-class dreamers, had grown accustomed to a life I funded. My sister, Lila, was their golden child, destined for greatness in their eyes, while I was the workhorse, expected to keep the machine running. My first job at a mid-sized consulting firm in Pioneer Square paid modestly, $52,000 a year, barely enough to breathe in Seattle's soaring economy. But to me, it was a lifeline. Each paycheck was carved up before it hit my account. 60% went to my parents for the mortgage on their Queen Anne home, utilities, car payments, and health insurance. Another chunk covered Lila's tuition at a private liberal arts college, where she studied art history, a prestigious field, my parents called it, though they never questioned how it was paid for. I lived in a cramped studio apartment in Capitol Hill, surviving on instant noodles and secondhand furniture, while my family's suburban home glowed with warmth I never felt. I still remember the first time I set up those automatic payments. Sitting at my desk, I clicked Authorize for $2,800 a month to slip from my account like clockwork. Mortgage, $200. Utilities, $300. Insurance, $500. Lila's tuition, $800. It was mechanical, unthinking, as if I'd been programmed to serve. My parents never said thank you. Instead, they'd call with demands. "Nora, the internet bill is late. Fix it." Or, "Lila needs money for a new laptop. Transfer it by tonight." I complied, not out of love, but out of fear. Fear of their disappointment. Fear of being seen as less than the daughter they expected. One memory burns brighter than the rest. I was 24, home after a 14-hour day at the firm, my eyes stinging from staring at financial models. My father sat in his armchair, flipping through a magazine, and said without looking up, "Financial analysis? That's just number crunching. Lila's going to be a curator, maybe even a professor. That's real work." My mother nodded, stirring a pot of soup for Lila's late-night study session. I stood there, invisible, my exhaustion dismissed as unimportant. I wanted to scream, to tell them that my number crunching paid for the gas heating that soup, the electricity lighting their home, the car Lila drove to her college parties. But I swallowed my words as I always did. Then there was my 26th birthday. It fell during Lila's finals week, and my family forgot entirely. I came home to a dark house, no card, no cake, just the hum of the refrigerator. I ate a stale granola bar and whispered happy birthday to myself in the dim light of my apartment. Weeks later, Lila's 21st birthday was a spectacle: catered food, string lights in the backyard, a DJ spinning tracks for 60 guests. I stood in the corner, clutching a plastic cup of soda, watching my parents beam as they toasted their star. No one mentioned that I'd paid for the lights, the food, the very grass beneath their feet. I wondered, does anyone here know I exist? Yet I kept paying. Part of me loved Lila, despite her indifference. Part of me craved my parents' approval, even a flicker of it. And part of me believed that if I worked harder, gave more, they'd finally see me. So I took on extra projects, worked weekends, skipped vacations. Once, I was so sick with the flu that I could barely stand, but I dragged myself to the office to meet a deadline. No one called to check on me. The only text I got was from my mother. "Don't forget the car payments due tomorrow." I tried to connect. Once, I invited my mother to lunch at a cozy cafe in Fremont, hoping for a moment of warmth. I wanted to tell her about my first big client win, how I'd stayed up until 3 a.m. to perfect the pitch, but she spent the meal gushing about Lila's internship at an art gallery, her new designer bag, her bright future. When I mentioned my project, she nodded absently and said, "That's nice, Nora, but Lila's really making something of herself." I left the cafe with a lump in my throat, feeling like a ghost in my own life. Through it all, I clung to one hope: my MBA. I believed that degree from the University of Washington, a beacon of prestige, would force my parents to see me. I imagined them at my graduation dinner, finally saying, "We're proud of you, Nora." But deep down, a quiet voice whispered, "If 5 years of carrying their world on your shoulders wasn't enough, what makes you think a degree will be?" The night that broke the silence. The idea for the graduation dinner wasn't about extravagance. It was about claiming one moment for myself. I chose a small restaurant by the waterfront, its warm brick walls and twinkling string lights creating an atmosphere of quiet elegance. I spent weeks planning, calling the chef to craft a menu with vegan options for my colleagues, selecting dahlias and peonies for the tables, writing heartfelt thank you notes for each guest. I invited my closest friends from the MBA program, my manager and a few colleagues who'd seen me at my lowest, and 2 professors who'd mentored me through doubt. And, despite the ache in my chest, I invited my parents and Lila. I wanted to believe they'd show up for me, just this once. I sent a message to our family group chat. "I've reserved a dinner to celebrate my graduation. It means the world to me, and I hope you'll be there." My mother's reply came hours later. "Don't make a big deal out of it, Nora. An MBA isn't that special." Her words stung, but I pushed them aside. "This is my night," I told myself. "I deserve this." The evening began beautifully. My friends arrived with hugs and flowers, their voices warm with pride. My colleague, Sarah, handed me a small gift, a leather-bound planner with my initials embossed on it, and said, "Nora, you're unstoppable." The room buzzed with laughter and clinking glasses, and for a moment I felt whole. Then my parents walked in, 45 minutes late, their faces cold and formal. My father wore a gray suit, my mother a navy dress, and Lila trailed behind in a silk blouse, her expression bored. I greeted them with a smile, my heart racing. "I'm so glad you're here," I said. My mother nodded curtly, and my father ordered a whiskey without meeting my eyes. As the night unfolded, My parents spoke only of Lila, her internship, her new apartment, her limitless potential. My friends tried to steer the conversation to me, but my parents deflected every attempt. When my professor stood to toast, saying, "To Nora, whose resilience and brilliance have earned her this moment," my father snorted softly, and my mother whispered to Lila, loud enough for the table to hear, "You'll do even better." I gripped my fork, forcing a smile, but inside, something was fracturing. Then came the moment that changed everything. My manager, a kind woman who'd mentored me for years, approached my parents' table. "You must be so proud of Nora," she said. "An MBA from UW is a huge achievement." My father laughed, a sharp, dismissive sound, and said, "It's nothing compared to what Lila's doing. Nora's just good at paying bills." The room went quiet. My manager faltered, then forced a smile and walked away. I stood frozen, the weight of his words sinking into me like stones. 5 years of sacrifices flashed before me, $36,000 a year for their mortgage, utilities, insurance, Lila's tuition. The nights I went hungry so they could eat, the birthdays they forgot, the fever I worked through, the love I'd begged for and never received. I couldn't stay silent anymore. I stepped forward, my voice steady but sharp. "Enough," I said, loud enough for every guest to hear. "For 5 years I've carried this family. I paid for the house you live in, the lights you turn on, the insurance that keeps you safe, and Lila's tuition so she could chase her dreams. I did it all, and you've never once said thank you. Tonight was supposed to be mine, but you've made it clear I'm nothing to you." The room was still. My friend Sarah gasped softly. Lila's eyes widened, her face pale. My mother's lips parted, but no words came. My father's face turned scarlet, and he slammed his fist on the table. "Paying the bills doesn't make you family," he shouted. The words hit like a slap, but they also ignited something inside me. I smiled, a cold, unwavering smile, and locked eyes with him. "Then let Lila pay for it," I said, my voice calm but final. I nodded toward my sister, who sat frozen, her hands trembling. My mother's whisper cut through the silence. "You're just jealous of Lila." I turned to her, my gaze unflinching. "Jealous? I've paid for every light in your house, every hospital bill, every semester of Lila's education. I'm not jealous. I'm exhausted. I've given everything, and all I've gotten is contempt. I'm done." The room erupted in murmurs. My colleagues stared in shock, my friends in awe. My father leapt to his feet, his voice booming. "Get out! This is no place for your drama!" I didn't flinch. I picked up my purse, straightened my dress, and said, "As you wish. From now on, you're on your own." I walked out, my heels clicking against the floor, each step a declaration of freedom. Behind me, I heard gasps, whispers, and my mother's voice calling my name, but I didn't turn back. The cool Seattle air hit my face as I stepped onto the waterfront, the sound of the waves blending with the fading piano notes from the restaurant. I had just severed a tie I'd spent years trying to hold together, and for the first time, I felt free. The aftermath, a new beginning. Back in my apartment, I sat in the dark, the city's lights twinkling through my window. My heart was heavy, but my resolve was iron. I opened my laptop and began dismantling the financial web that had bound me to my family. One by one, I canceled every automatic payment: mortgage, utilities, insurance, Lila's tuition. Each click felt like shedding a chain. I sent an email to the insurance company. "As of today, I am no longer responsible for policy WA 472819. Please contact the policyholder for payment updates." I removed my card from Lila's college account and blocked the secondary card my parents used. The numbers on the screen, $2,300, $400, $600, were no longer my burden. I leaned back, exhaling. The silence was deafening but liberating. I typed a note to myself. If they say I'm not family, then I owe them nothing. From now on, I live for me. I closed my laptop and stared out at the city, the Space Needle glowing in the distance. For the first time in years, I felt weightless. The next morning, my phone exploded with notifications. My mother. "Nora, The power bill bounced. They're cutting service tomorrow. What did you do? My father. You've ruined us. Call me now. Lila posted on Instagram. My sister abandoned us because she's jealous. She doesn't care about our parents. I sipped my coffee, letting the chaos unfold. By noon, the bank emailed. Mortgage payment failed. The utility company. Service disconnection scheduled. Their world, built on my sacrifices, was crumbling. A week later, a neighbor, Mrs. Larson, called. Nora, your parents' house is a mess. The power's off, and your father was yelling at the utility workers in the street. The police showed up because someone thought it was a domestic dispute. I pictured it. My father's face red with rage, my mother crying, neighbors whispering. For years, I'd shielded them from this humiliation. Now, they faced the truth. Lila's Instagram post backfired. My friend Sarah commented, "Jealous? Nora paid for your entire life while you partied. Maybe thank her instead of whining." A colleague added, "I was at the dinner. Your dad said, paying the bills doesn't make you family." Nora's not the villain here. The comments piled up, exposing my family's ingratitude. Lila deleted the post, but the damage was done. A month later, my parents showed up at my office in Pioneer Square, causing a scene. My father shouted, "You've destroyed us, Nora!" My mother sobbed, "We're losing the house. Do you want us homeless?" I stood tall, my voice calm. "You said I'm not family. I'm just doing what you asked, letting Lila take care of you." The office went quiet, my colleagues watching with a mix of shock and respect. I nodded to security, who escorted them out. As the doors closed, I felt a weight lift. I was no longer their daughter, but I was finally myself. A new family, a new life. 6 months later, I moved to Chicago for a promotion to a senior analyst role at my firm's headquarters. My new apartment overlooked Lake Michigan, its waves a reminder of the freedom I'd claimed. I hosted a small dinner, inviting colleagues, friends, and my grandmother, the only family member who'd ever seen me for who I am. We laughed, toasted, and shared stories under the glow of string lights. This was my family, chosen, not inherited. My parents' house was sold at a loss. They moved to a small apartment, their pride shattered. Lila dropped out of college, unable to pay tuition, and took a job at a coffee shop. My mother's emails alternated between pleas and accusations, but I replied only once. "Until you can apologize sincerely, we have nothing to discuss." I meant it. As I write this, I'm sitting by my window, the Chicago skyline sparkling below. I've lost a family, but I've gained something greater. Myself. If you've ever felt invisible, belittled by those meant to love you, know that you're not alone. Family isn't blood. It's the people who see you, lift you up, and choose you. Tell me, where are you reading this from? Let's share this journey of finding our true families.